Well, it took a long time. I mean, we broke up really in 1976, and I don't think that, you know, either Lindsey and I were really comfortable being around each other for years.
While playing at a church social in '65, 16-year-old Lindsey had his first encounter with a girl who would later figure prominently in his life.
I only met Lindsey once in high school. He was a junior and I was a senior, and he was playing California Dreaming, and I just kind of burst into song and sang the song with him.
She played me one of her songs, which I was quick to critique. Nothing's changed since then. And I think there was kind of a mutual attraction even then, even though it was not acknowledged.
We talked for a minute, and I went away, he went away, and I never really saw him again until almost 3 years later.
19-year-old Stevie Nicks was already part of the student body at San Jose State.
He and his band called me and asked me if I wanted to be in their rock and roll band.
Lindsey and Stevie's musical chemistry was immediately apparent.
The power that you bring. I realized that Lindsey and I had something special. And I think everybody else realized it right away, too. We got lots of jobs. Any San Francisco band you can come up with, we probably opened for 3 solid years because we were good. Lindsey wasn't really the boss of that band. Javier was. Lindsey and I weren't writing for that band. Javier wrote all the songs and ruled the band with an iron hand. We had to tell the other 3 guys that we loved that we had to break the band up and that Lindsey and I were going to go to Los Angeles.
Before long, their partnership was more than musical.
Stevie and I had worked together for 4 years without ever being romantically involved. And that provided a really strong foundation as lovers and as musical partners.
I was the person who loved Lindsey without him being famous, without him being a millionaire. This was just 2 kids out of Menlo Atherton High School. So, you know, I loved him for all the right reasons.
After 2 years in L.A., Lindsey and Stevie finally got a deal with Polydor Records in 1973.
And if you go forward, I'll meet you there.
But the Buckingham Nicks album stiffed.
It's dropped by Polydor. It's out 3 months and it's dropped. And Lindsey and I think that the world has ended because we have had a taste of the finer things and we are back to square one.
Then, just as Lindsey needed his family's support the most, his beloved father, Morris, was struck down by a massive heart attack at the age of 56.
He was in a gas line during the gas shortage in 1974. And Stevie and I got that call, and of course it was a huge, huge shock to me.
I answered the phone the morning that Lindsey's dad died, and I had to hand him the phone, knowing what they were going to tell him.
He was devastated. We all were, because it was so sudden. The first time death comes to your door in your family, you always feel that it's for the others, that it's not going to happen to anyone around you. And I guess that's part of just a growing up process. It's too bad it had to happen.
I don't think Lindsey ever quite got over the loss of his dad.
In 1974, despite the couple's hard work, 4 years of poverty and struggle had begun to take a toll on their relationship.
Sometimes they would be just so close and they'd be working on some music together and inseparable. Sometimes they would just be having a major verbal fight. And it was like being on a seesaw and you never knew which side was going to be up or down.
Fleetwood Mac came exactly at the right time because it was going to start to not be much fun anymore.
A few weeks later, Fleetwood Mac's guitarist Bob Welch quit the band. A desperate Mick called for Lindsey, but Lindsey made it clear that he and Stevie were a pair.
It wasn't really like being asked to join the Beatles. We still believed that we had something to offer as a duo.
I went out and bought all the Fleetwood Mac records to decide whether or not I thought that we could add something to this band, whether it was worth giving up Buckingham Nicks for. Lindsey has a definite sound, so when he, took me to Fleetwood Mac and we put our style on them, it was a lot of Lindsey. All the time that it could have just worked out, Sometimes I feel like everybody thinks it was just me, but Lindsey wasn't happy either.
In 1977, in the wake of her 5-year relationship with Lindsey, Stevie Nicks began a secret affair with Mick Fleetwood.
Stevie and I broke up and never really got together again. I mean, it was not my business what she did.
Lindsey knew. Lindsey definitely found out, and we tried to keep it very secret.
My relationship with Stevie, I still think of very fondly, and she's, to this day, a magical person. I didn't steal Stevie from Lindsey or anything like that.
You know, whatever. That's rock and roll.
That same year, Stevie Nicks released her first solo album. It topped the charts and further established Stevie as a major star.
I took a record to Lindsey and signed it and left it on the floor up against the wall in the main studio, and he never took it home.
Probably.
Maybe some not so noble things were driving me. I think an overly competitive spirit, maybe competing with Stevie. Wanting to compete just to get the due that I felt was mine.
Complicating the situation was the fact that cocaine and alcohol abuse were rampant in the band.
Everyone I knew was doing some kind of drugs, including myself. I think it was a question of how much you really let it be a part of your life.
Nobody ever told us they were bad. I swear, nobody ever told us they were bad.
With the Big Mac machine back in motion, the pressure was on to tour. But in an explosive 11th hour meeting, Lindsey announced that he wanted out.
I said, look, do we have to tour? Why don't we all take a rest? If something is crazy in the studio, it usually is crazier by a factor of 5 or 10 on the road.
I think I got up and ran across the room and tried to kill him. I think I ran and attacked him.
In a way, I was fired because I didn't want to go on the road, and that's fair enough, but that's kind of the way it went down.
The tour was booked. It was like, we are going on this tour, with or without you, because we have to. Lindsey and I, you know, we have something very special. We decided to do this a long, long time ago, and we fought for it.
Lindsey's now guided by a more upbeat muse.
He's in love again. He's in love with these children. We have all been very spoiled, rotten rock and roll stars. And so those little children make it most impossible to continue to be the way that we were.